Studio 501c3. I'm your host, Kim Jones, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Village. Our show features nonprofit organizations designated as 501c3s by the IRS for providing a public benefit. In most cases, your donations to them are deductible. On Studio 501c3, we're proud partners with Montgomery Community Media in featuring the county's excellent nonprofit programs and services. MCM is your public resource providing access to information relevant to Montgomery County residents. Joining us today is Bonnie Fogel, founder and executive director of Imagination Stage, which uses theater to help young people discover their voices and their identities. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kim. It's just wonderful to be with you today.
So you've been described as a visionary, an energetic coach, a brilliant businesswoman, and many other things as you've nurtured Imagination Stage over 40 years. But I'd like to really begin with asking you about the performing arts and how it really impacts a child, a young person, short and long term.
Yes, it's a spectrum, like a lot of things. First of all, to say that theater and the performing arts is good for every child. For some children, it is an absolute essential as part of their being. They will not be whole without it. For other children, it's something that is just going to give them a little bit of something extra. We all learn in different ways. Many people really learn best when they're speaking, when they're moving, when they're narrating. And for those people and people with huge social intelligence, the stage is a wonderful place for them to be. But every child needs the arts in their lives, and that's the bottom of it.
Right. And do you actually partner with the school system and other programs in the community? What do you do there?
We do. We have a wonderful partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools, where we bring 3,000 Title I third grade students to Imagination Stage to see a show each year for free. The buses are paid for, the tickets are paid for, professional development for teachers is all covered, and there are also curriculum supports. So that is our biggest program with Montgomery County Public Schools.
Oh, that's very important.
Yeah.
And in times when, you have some sense of austerity and the arts are always the first thing to be looked at to either cut back on, it's important to have those partnerships so that you can then provide that. And they could probably, these institutions like school systems can do that less expensively through a program like yours.
Yes, well, that is very true. And ideally, where teachers, for instance, are having to be cut back in schools, which has happened for 40 years, ever since we started Imagination Stage, we see this happening. And I would love to suggest to school systems that actually they hire the local arts organizations to go in if they can't afford their own arts teachers, music teachers, drama teachers, dance teachers. Bring in your local arts organization and we'll do it for you. We do a fair amount of that with private schools where we'll take over the arts function for the school, and it works very well for everyone. So, and especially well for the children.
Exactly.
So it's something I would love the school system to take on a bit more.
Well, with all of that brilliance, I'm sure that you'll continue to look at those efficiencies and navigate the way through. So now, how many students or children or patrons are you really serving each year? And can you give us a brief example of someone that might have realized their voice through one of your programs?
We serve 100,000 patrons a year, and that is just in Imagination Stage in Maryland. We have a DC component now where we're serving more children, probably about 5,000 in DC. So Your question is an interesting one. There are children who who are now stars on Broadway or on television, who started with us. We, however, are not in the business of training children to be stars. We're in the business of supporting children holistically. Mm-hmm. So for us, our biggest success stories are children who were not doing well, never really feeling perhaps completely at home in themselves socially. And they come to Imagination Stage and they discover their artistry and they feel at home, and it empowers them in ways never thought possible, by themselves, by their families. Those really are our true stars.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So I want to, we just got a little time before our break, so I want to get to the fact that you're kind of building community here. So even for individuals or families that don't have children at the age of your programs or don't participate in your programs, what would you say to them about investing in local theater like this? Because you have the data and you have the results of how it impacts so many lives.
Yes, I would say, first of all, just in the same way as we talk about shopping locally, eating locally, I would say play locally. So it doesn't have to be the big family outing that we're going down to DC to the Kennedy Center or some other, phenomenal place. There are phenomenal arts venues in Montgomery County, some of the best in the country, in fact. So that is a way to show your support. Play locally. I think that's really an important thing for people to do. And that is a means of supporting us, supporting the community. We all know that the arts are good for people. It's also good for business. So I can assure you, all the restaurants where I have Imagination Stage, for instance, they know when our curtain comes down because our community comes out of theater and goes into their restaurants. So the arts are good for business.
Good, good. All right. So hopefully when someone sees this show, they'll be inclined to play locally. So we're going to go to a break just briefly, but after the break, we'll find out more about how Imagination Stage empowers young people. You're watching Studio 501c3 on Montgomery Community Media. Please stay with us.
Jimmy can't sing,
and Tommy can't dance.
So we're gonna put some ants in their pants. Aww, they walk like a monkey, hop like a bunny. Isn't that funny? Ants in their pants, they've got ants in their pants. They've got ants in their pants, they've got ants in their pants. Ants in their pants, they've got ants in their pants. They've got ants in their pants. They've got ants in their pants.
One more time.
Jimmy can't sing,
and Tommy can't dance.
So we're gonna put some ants in their pants. Aww.
Kids will spend 22 minutes watching us, the super duper party troopers, sing about ants in their pants.
Isn't that funny? Ants in their pants, they've got ants in their pants. They've got ants in their pants, they've got...
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Turning a 20-foot wall into a canvas takes vision. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Welcome back to Studio 501c3. I'm Kim Jones, and with me today is Bonnie Fogel, founder and executive director of Imagination Stage. Welcome back, Bonnie.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a little bit about you work with so many children that have different abilities, and that's very critical in the world today. What do you do also to incorporate more of the racial and ethnic diversity into the work you're doing every day, making sure that children and families are involved in your programs as well?
Right. We've been working very hard, as you said, for 40 years to reflect in our community the people and the children who are in the community. So it started 30 years ago when we started inviting children with access and inclusion needs to be a part of our programs. On our professional stage, we were among the first people to do diversity casting. We had children with disabilities, well, not children, professional actors with disabilities on our stages way before anybody else was doing that. And then, of course, our professional theater, in terms of our actors, very particularly, has always been a wonderful example of the cast reflecting the diversity of our population. More recently, we've started a whole new area that we call Theater for Change. And it's exactly what it says it is. We started about 5 years ago working with the young refugees from Central America who came unaccompanied to this country. Many of them ended up in Montgomery County. And we started working with them on trauma-informed drama therapy. And we collected their stories. And we have written a play about it called Oyame, which now tours. That we've done in working in relationships with Health and Human Service in Montgomery County. The latest effort that we're working on is we're working with the Corrections Department, working in Boyd's at the correction facility there with young men behind bars. And again, we're collecting their stories and we're sharing them to build understanding between young offenders and the community.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when Oyame launched, and I was there for one of the performances, and it is very powerful. So I think you are doing really important work.
That same author, Miriam Gonzalez, is writing now a piece actually in DC, but it will tour to Maryland, called 10 Seconds. And it's based on the work of officers in DC and the young people in the community with whom they meet on a regular basis. And they're telling their stories to each other. And we're writing the play about it. And it's called 10 Seconds. And you don't have to, you can figure out what that means, right?
Right.
Everything that can happen in 10 seconds. And this is a brilliant play. And I cannot wait to get it touring soon.
Great.
To Montgomery County.
All right.
Wonderful.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, these are good things for our audience to know. So we've only got about 20 seconds. Very quickly, the next step in the life cycle of Imagination Stage?
We're in our 4th decade. We're in our 4th evolution. I see us doing more work in the Theater for Change area. It's where we're needed. And that is really going to be our focus.
Okay, very good. This is fantastic information. I hope that as we all start to get back out and moving, because it's that time of year when people want to get back into the thick of things, you know, people come back out and get over to Imagination Stage. So thank you, Bonnie. It's all the time we have today. I want to thank you again for sharing information with our audience. For more information about how to help, go to imaginationstage.org and join us next time on Studio 501c3, your window on nonprofits in Montgomery County. See you next time. This episode of Studio 501c3 was sponsored by MBA Growth Partners.